Thank you all for being here. It's me, Ari Dustin, or as you know me already, Rashid. I see Suzanne is here, Mik is here, Danielle is here. Thank you all for being here. If you, Sundar is there also, great. If the rest can show themselves present in the live chat too, it would be very great. All right. The topic of today is when society mirrors you. Now, what is mirroring? Oh, Elephant Room Studio is here also, great. Mirroring. Mirroring is the action, there's something you do. Mirroring is when you reflect someone's expectations back to them. All right, that's what mirroring is. Now, let me give you a small example, which should also be a variable for now. You are a guy. You came from a background where your parents were quite strict, way too strict. Your parents were just narcissistic, but they disguised it as strictness for your own good. Now you grew up realizing that your parents were out of their mind, but you also realized that you don't have the ability to deal with emotional pain. You really don't know how to deal with it. So you end up acting just like your parents and come with excuses. So that's the thing about yourself that you don't want to face. You face your parents, but now there's something that your parents caused in you that you want to face about yourself. So one day you meet this someone from the opposite sex, okay? You meet someone from the opposite sex who talks similar to how you talk. She dresses in a sexually provoking and fancy way. She, when you talk about politics or you talk about subjects, her interests are quite similar to yours. And every time you come with your reasons, she agrees with your reasons. Now, what has happened here? This woman is mirroring you. She knows what you as a man longs for, biologically and psychologically, and she also did a background check on you. What type of parents you had, how you were raised, how it affected you, and how you dealt with it, so how your expectations are today, and she reflected what you expect back to you. So every time she talked to you, she mirrored back what you expected. And look at this. Because you mirrored back what you were expecting, you were gratified. You felt happy. So you thought, hey, I found my perfect match. That's what you thought. Go down the time a little bit later. You're in a divorce court. You find out now that she was cheating all along, ever since she met you. Now, during the divorce, she both wants custody of the children and she wants more than half of your assets. So now, all the financial assets you've worked for, she is taking half of them away, and some other guy who didn't do anything is going to benefit from them, including her. Now, what happened there? She mirrored you. And why did you fall for the mirroring? It's very simple. You were not willing to look into the mirror and decide, I want to be a better human being. You didn't. You just want to be left alone. Your parents raised you in a defective way. It developed bad thinking in you, but you didn't want to face your own bad thinking. You didn't want to face yourself in the mirror, which is a painful thing to do, but then decide, I want to be better. If you would have done that, you would have never fallen for the mirroring, because then you would realize it's too good to be true. How come I meet another human being from the opposite sex and she's like a mirror reflection of me? Now, let's use a female example now. You're a woman, okay? And you also have this issue, you don't want to face yourself, you don't want to self-reflect. And you often just want to act out, just want to escalate, to feel at ease. You meet this guy, and after you complain, just listens to you, endless complaints, and he agrees with you. And this show even makes up examples of how he was upset too. So now you're gratified because you feel recognized. Your complaints are valid. There's someone finally listening to you. The thing is, do you listen to other people? That's another thing, but you don't think about that. Think about, hey, someone's listening to me. Later, You are in a home, you are in a women's shelter because he's beating you all the time. Even force you to sex multiple times during the relationship also. Now what happens? The guy mirrored you. He noticed your defect, that you were not willing to face yourself, and he noticed that you always want to complain and instead of working on solutions, so he mirrored your complaints. And because of that, you felt gratified. You became infatuated with your own mirror image. You saw and experienced yourself mirrored to someone from the opposite sex. That's what happens. Now, what I just explained about mirroring in sexual relationships, it often happens in the world. People will mirror you just to take advantage of you. And sad to say, 95% of the time, it works. The reason it works is because people already made up their mind they don't want to self-reflect. They don't want to face themselves in the mirror and decide, I want to be a better human being. They just want excuses to be left alone. That's the case with most people. Now, what about politics? Let's say you grew up in a family that was either middle class or they were upper class. So you came from a household with money. While growing up, you notice that there are people that are poor. And you ask your mom and dad, Mom, why are those people poor? Your parents told you don't work, they're lazy. When you became older, you realize you're dominating. This attitude, this mindset, those people are poor because they're lazy, doesn't end up. Because there is money for all kinds of stuff. Why is there not money to provide for those people? And you realize that the money is printed anyway. So how come the money is printed and distributed in such a way some people are in lack? But if you have to face this, and you have to face that your own parents and the people you grew up with are narcissistic abusers. You don't want to do that. So you stick onto the excuse, poverty exists because people are poor. And then one day you encounter this politician mirroring this inverted logic that people are poor because they are lazy. And now your escape is validated. You end up joining a political party. You come up with all types of excuses why you are a fan of this politician and that party. But then you realize that you are being taken advantage of. That the politician never does what he promises, over and over again. What has happened? You have been mirrored. You have been mirrored. And the reason why so many people are trapped by the mirroring trap is because they have a self-obsessed focus. Me. I like, I don't like, my boundaries, I. This self-obsessed attitudes that fallen mankind has is why they're so easily tricked. The only thing Satan has to do is send someone to mirror your faulty expectations and you're already in. This whole idea that people have to earn your attention and be worthy to be in your presence is self-focused. So Satan only triggers the self-focus that's already there. And 95% of the people fall for it all the time. So let's get through to you. Society is an artificial narcissist that mirrors your relief seeking. Not everyone chases relief the same way. Some people get drunk all the time, others do drugs, others just go out and look for fights, others just overwork at work and become workaholics. Some just whore around, sleeping over, having sex all over the place. So the way people chase relief may vary, but at the root of it, they all chase relief. Society is the artificial narcissist that the crowd enacts to mirror you. And that's why so many people end up investing to be part of society, not realizing that it's a monstrous construct they're joining. Why? Because they never self-reflected. Someone that self-reflects regularly will never fall for society. Someone that self-reflects regularly will never fall for society. This is the reason why mainstream media works. This is the reason why advertising works. This is the reason why religion works. This is the reason why politics work. All those things work because most people simply don't look in the mirror and they don't decide, I want to be better. So society will mirror you at some point just to trick you. And here's another thing about it. Once people realize, hold on a minute, this seems too good to be true, or there's something wrong about here, they deny those warning signals. Why? Because A, they get the relief. They have the sex partner. They have the family law that approves of them. They have the friends. They have the family. They have the job. They have the money. They have the ease. But then they see that society is abusing and exploiting other people. But they're part of society. So they are also responsible for what society is doing because they're part of it. But then to justify their membership of society, they make excuse saying, oh, those are just a few rotten apples. Or, yeah, okay, it's true that the poor are not always to blame for being poor, but A, it's just the way the world is. People come with weird excuses just to excuse the abuse of the crowd that they're part of. Why? Because they don't want to face themselves that they are the ones part of the crowd, and they even have to ask themselves, why did I see this monstrous construct what it is? Then they face there's something wrong with them. They don't want to face there's something wrong with them, and they don't want to face that because something was wrong with them, they didn't see how narcissistic society was. So they cannot justify their own refusal to self-reflect. They can't justify that, and they can't justify their membership of society. They can't. So they will claim that they are the exception. Okay, society does escalate on people, but it won't happen to me. I'm the exception. I tick all the boxes, and I will never faces any of that. Till the day that society scards them, and then suddenly they're crying like they're crying rivers. They are the big victim that everyone's after. But hold on a minute. Weren't they the same people who for decades made excuse for society? Weren't they the ones who refused to self-reflect and insist on being part of society despite seeing the violence and the harm society does? Weren't they the same ones that enabled the victimization of the scapegoats? Oh, but now that they're the ones discarded, now they're the ones that are being neglected, oh, now suddenly, oh, look how evil and bad the world is. Yeah, the same world they were fighting to be part of. So listen to this. When someone is murmuring and complaining about how bad they've been treated, and how unfair the world is, are they really realizing that right now? Or they didn't notice it a long time ago, and were they just narcissistic by denying it? So that is why many, not all, there are resistance movements out there who are genuine. There are genuine people out there who have enough and they protest and resist. That exists. But many, not all, but many of those activist movements out there are just hypocritical pity parties. Why? Because many of those people who participate in those activist movements, they wouldn't dare to face their own narcissistic expectations. They wouldn't. No. What they want is they want relief, but not realize that they won't get relief unless some issues are addressed. So out of frustration, they become militant to addressing some issues. But not all, but many of those activists were involved in those activist movements. The moment they get a deal in which they can be built out from the consequence of those issues, they'll sell out very quickly. So that is why be very cautious of supporting a good cause. There are good causes in the world. Don't get it twisted. There are good causes in the world. Whether people are against abortion, or people are against child abuse, or people are against human trafficking, or people who are against poisoning people through artificial foods. There are good causes in the world. However, the people leading those movements, most of them are narcissistic sellouts. So they're not genuine to begin with. And many of the people that follow those movements, they don't see to the scam. They don't. So often, it's blind people being led by blind people. Yes, they can be against violence against women. But if they fail to see that this violence against women is a result of our fallen state, then they keep on fighting, campaigning against violence against women. They won't get anything done, just like feminism has done for decades. The blind leading the blind. And what did Christ say? If the blind lead the blind, they will both fall into a ditch. That happened to feminism. They kept rioting, protesting, being angry. But what did the feminist movement achieve that benefits women on the long term worldwide? They did achieve minor things here and there, but did they achieve long-term safety worldwide for all women? No, they did not. Just like Daniel's saying here, worldly people turn a good cause into a religion and cause most of the time. That's true. Let's think about this movement which is called Wikileaks. More than a decade ago, I believe already, I heard about Wikileaks. I mean, Wikileaks is quite old. And it was about this guy, Julian Assange, that was releasing data of corruption within governments. I had someone tell me, Rashid, Wikileaks is a good cause. It reveals how the public is being scammed. And at the time, I agreed. Okay, because indeed, they are exposing how the public is lied to. And I'm against the public being lied to. Absolutely. However, shortly afterwards, I realized, hold on a minute. This Julian Assange is kind of the hero of revealing the dark secrets of the governments, but hold on a minute. How come that those governments get away so easily with lying to the masses? That is something that Wikileaks never addressed. That is something Julian Assange never talked about. Then we realized, hold on a minute. Okay, it is a good cause that expose scamming that are people scamming the masses, that you expose that. That's a good thing. I support that. But why don't you also reveal the root of why the masses are so easily scammed? So then I realized, so this WikiLeaks thing, where it was a side up from the start, or where it was a genuine movement, that genuine movement has turned into a cult now, because people are now bypassing dealing with the root of stuff. I would support anyone who genuinely is upset with masses being lied to and exposing it. But the moment I realized that those same people are not willing to deal with the root cause of things, I realized, this is just relief that they're chasing instead of long-term solutions. From that point on, I declined supporting WikiLeaks. I do support exposing lies, and do support exposing when people scam the masses. I do support exposing that, but I don't support people becoming obsessed with exposure. Many of those activist movements, they are obsessed with fighting the issue, but they don't deal with the root of the issue. Now, the reason why the masses are so easily scammed is because the masses don't want to face reality. The masses just want to escape. That's why the governments get away with scamming the masses so easily. Just like I explained, the only thing they do is mirroring the relief seeking of the masses. And by mirroring the relief seeking of the masses feel gratified, they feel validated, and that's it. They look any further. So forget about the spying technology. Forget about social media. Forget about the CIA, the FBI. Forget about all those intelligence agencies. Forget about the Mossad. Forget about all of that. None of those organizations will be able to function if the masses were not so obsessed with relief. Look, if you expose something that's true, amen, you've exposed it. Okay, but also deal with the reason why this was covered up for so long. For example, let me show one thing. For example, about the Vietnam War. A lot of you from the United States, so that's why this example may resonate with you. The Vietnam War. Even during the 1970s, or actually at the end of the 1960s and in the 1970s, the American public was against the war in general. Worldwide, people were against the war. And the United States withdraw its troops eventually. Withdraw its troops. Now, what triggered this whole war? The Tonkin incident. Why do you call it the Tonkin incident? Because they claim it was in the Tonkin Bay, but okay. The same Tonkin incidents were 2 days when the North Vietnamese military bombed the USA Navy. First of all, what was USA Navy doing near North Vietnam if they were the ones governing south of Vietnam? What were they doing over there? That's another question. And secondly, where were all the receipts of the dead sailors and the relatives speaking out? Where was all of that? So a lot of folks from the start realized there's something wrong with this Tonkin incident. First, you say it was one incident, say it's two incidents. It's decades later that the classified data revealed that the Tonkin incident never happened. Now, let's say you figure out that the Tonkin incident never happened. Okay, I clap for you, you exposed it, but hold on. If the Tonkin incident never happened, that means that the United States, together with other countries, were in agreement of bombing people that had nothing to do with conflict, and even bombed villages and towns, killing children. Not only in Vietnam, also in other parts of the former Indochina. That means that you also need to face that. Hold on a minute. Why didn't anyone back then see that the Tonkin incident was a hoax? Or if they knew, why didn't they speak out? So now you need to deal with the whole issue, and that is that the masses don't want to face what's going on. One of the reasons why people turn against the Vietnam War is because the atrocities were filmed. They filmed all the tragedies were happening. That's why people were confronted with the tragedies, and that's why they turned against the Vietnam War. If those tragedies were not put in people's faces, many of them would have went along with excuses of the US military, saying, hey, we need to protect us against communism, or we need to protect the free West. It were journalists who were stubborn enough to go to the danger zone and to film and record and publish all the atrocities. That's what forced people to realize this is bad, and a lot of people turn against the Vietnam War. So that means that if they were not forced to face the atrocities of the war, they would still be supportive of it. So they also need to face that. What happens is, often people discover a scam, they expose it, and they get stuck with exposure. Okay, the exposure happens, but why did the scam succeed? Oh, they need to face the masses what they are, including yourself if you're part of the masses that wants to leave. And that's the thing. Many of those activist movements also mirroring you. That's why you tend to fall for them. And for example, you have people doubting the moon landing. They're doubting NASA. Well, I'm glad you're doubting NASA. NASA was the result. Not completely only, but it's partially the result of Operation Paperclip. You can Google it yourself. Operation Paperclip, in which many former Nazi officers and Nazi scientists were relocated to the United States to receive American citizenship, and they began to supply the United States with scientific knowledge. And based on that, not only because of that, but that's one of the origins of NASA. So NASA has its origins partially in Nazism. Oh, but they will never tell you about this. Werner von Braun. Werner von Braun. Google that man's thing. Werner von Braun was a Nazi scientist that later participated in a space program of the United States. Why don't they tell you that one of the chief members of the space program used to be a Nazi scientist? Now, anyway, so I'm glad people are exposing NASA. I'm glad that they are exposing the moon landing team. Because first of all, NASA is saying we can't go back to the moon because we lost all technology. We accidentally destroyed a whole basement with the data. How can you destroy a whole basement just like that? It doesn't add up. And how come we have an increase in telecommunication today? We're going to 2G, 3G, 4G, now we're at 5G. You're talking about 6G right now. Yet you guys cannot improve your technology of going to the moon. Yet technology go all the way to so-called Mars, but you don't have technology to go to the moon. So NASA is contradicting itself. Okay, so you guys figure out that NASA is lying. Possibly also lying about the shape of the Earth. If this is true, I'm not going to discuss that topic over here, but if this is true, ask yourself, why did people fall for it? Just exposing the lies of NASA doesn't get you anywhere. Now you need to explain why they got away with it for so long. And listen to what I'm saying here. You can fool people. You can fool a crowd of people for a moment, but you can't fool a crowd of people long term. That's impossible. Let me say like this. Cognitive dissonance, that means this mental stress when you find out you've been scammed. That mental stress will only last for a little moment. Eventually, there are two options. Either you admit you've been scammed and you mourn and grieve what happened, or you develop a reprobate attitude by clinging onto the scam militantly. One of the two happens. So that is another thing then Danielle is saying that's true. Those people who expose NASA, they're stuck because now they need to deal with the fact that most of the people around them are also in on the hoax, because most people don't want to face that they've been lied to since they were children. So a lot of people don't want to wake up and they don't want to know what's really going on. So that means that many of the relatives, sometimes even their spouses, may turn on them. Listen to what I'm saying here, saints. Cognitive dissonance only lasts for a little while, a few weeks or at best a few months, 4 or 5 months or something like that, or 6 months to the max. After 4 months, and it's been a while already, people know that they've been scammed to. They've been lied to. They know they've been scammed. They know they've been lied to. They know it. So there is no hesitation anymore. They know it. They just don't want to deal with the fact that they've been scammed and all the ramifications that comes with it. So they will fake like they don't know what's going on. They will develop this militant attitude against anyone who mentions the scam. Or, as some people do, they get sad, they break down, they grieve and mourn, and they process the depth of what happened to them. It's one of the two. After 4 months, it's no cognitive dissonance anymore, especially when it comes to a whole people. If someone is mentally slow, okay. If someone is mentally slow, those are medical condition. I'm not a medical expert, but those I'm not a psychiatrist. But if someone has a medical condition that they are mentally slow, okay, then cognitive dissonance may last longer. But don't tell me that a whole crowd of people can have cognitive dissonance for decades. That's not possible. At some point, the crowd, the people know what's going on. They just don't want to look into it because they don't want to give up the relief it provides them. Because this is what you need to understand. Any scam or any con out there needs to provide you some psychic benefit. It's not as much the physical benefits or the sexual benefits that trick people into hoaxes. It's the psychic benefits. It's me. I've been telling already how to deal with the root of things in many live streams. You cannot have a whole crowd of people in psychological shock for years. That's impossible. A psychic benefit is emotional or mental compensation for getting along with something. When you get a pat on the back, emotional approval, or you get a reward, a small symbol of appreciation, that's a psychic benefit. Psychic benefits tend to last longer. Psychic benefits tend to last longer than physical benefits. You give someone some money, the money will run out. You give them some sexual access, it will expire. Psychic benefits tend to last for a lifetime. People want the psychic benefit of complying with society. That's what they're in for. Even when they know that something doesn't add up, it's all about the psychic benefits for them. So the people themselves are untrustworthy, they're unstable themselves. And that's why those elite groups manage to get away with all their deceptions. Think about the whole war in Iraq and war in Afghanistan. Again, to take away the weapons of mass destruction. First of all, if Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, wouldn't he have used them on his own population by then? And what does Afghanistan has to do with it? Oh, it has to do with Osama bin Laden, so-called. Look, if people would have asked proper questions back then, in 2011, 2002, the whole war in Iraq and Afghanistan would not have taken place because the public would have been aware and it would have been too embarrassing, too difficult for George Bush and his other groups to succeed and continue. The reason why they succeed and continued, they bombed cities, they killed households, they committed genocide on many Iraqis and Afghani people. And it's the genocide they conducted in those Islamic countries that caused the rise of Islamic extremism. Yes, there are Islamic extremist groups out there. Yes, they do exist. But who brought forth those monsters? Isn't it the United States and the Western world itself that agreed with committing genocide on those people, so-called to avenge 9/11? And weren't American families themselves supporting their sons and daughters to join the US military and go out there and fight a mission in Iraq or Afghanistan? So the Western public was in on the genocide that happened in those Islamic countries. And now it backfired. They have a lot of Islamic extremism in the Western world, and there are even some of their own population that's turning on them. That's why when ISIS, or ISIL, as Obama called it, emerged, many Western people who grew up in the West joined. Even Native Europeans joined. Why? Because the genocidal violence on Iraqi and Afghani people, it backfired on them right now. But now that the violence backfires, now they want to close the borders, they want stricter migration policies. Now the public's playing the victim. But hold on a minute. Weren't you the same folks that for almost 2 decades were in on tolerating everything to happen? So now you get it. The crowd doesn't want to be told, you all are responsible. You are neglectful. This is all on you. So you guys are obliged. You don't have a choice, no free will. You are obliged to comply with solutions. Now, the crowd doesn't want to hear that. They want to hear how pathetic it is that they have to deal with issues. They want to be the victim. They want to be pampered with sympathy. That's what the crowd wants. So, society will mirror you just to get you on board with the violence. And too often people say on board with society because they think they are the exception. Hey, I'm telling you, you're not an exception. You're not an exception. Just like society victimizes the scapegoats, they will victimize you too, where you're not of good use anymore. As simple as that. So that's why I'm telling you, when the Heavenly Father begins to weaken you and begins to destroy your social relationships, don't fight it. Because the Heavenly Father is delivering you from enablers of evil. That's what he's doing. That's all the Heavenly Father is doing. At the time it's going on, you're not aware that many people around you are enablers of evil. So you think you think you're losing something good. No, you're not. You are the good that's being delivered, that's being secured. Not them. Either society mirrors your fears or it mirrors your reliefs, your anger or your hurt, whatever. Society will mirror you just to get you on board. And because you see the scapegoats being victimized, you think, oh, it's not going to happen to me. And this is why a lot of people out there ask me, why did God allow this to happen to me? Now listen to what I'm saying here. I'm not accusing you nor condemning you, but listen to me. When you were participating, when you were part of society and you saw society abusing other people, you should realize if they're willing to abuse other people that they consider valuable, they will do the same to me when they perceive me as not valuable. So why didn't you realize, you know what, I need to stop being yoked these people, because if they don't perceive me as profitable, they will escalate on me. They do it to other people right in front of me, so they will do the same to me too. Why didn't you realize that? No, instead you became frightened and you began to police society even more, just so that it wouldn't happen to you what's going on with your neighbor. What happened to your neighbor should be your eye-opener to decide, you know what, I don't want to be yoked with this anymore. F this. However, many people will deny the fact that they're dealing with an abusive construct, and they'll just pretend as if, hey, what happened to that guy was his own fault, or he brought it on himself, or he asked for it, or you know what, even if it was pure victimization, it's just once in a while thing. It's not how society by the root is. They will deny it just to hold on to the ease of society. Well, if you keep holding on to the ease of society and later the violence of society backfires and harms you, then hey, that's justice. The moment you realize that this thing is a wrong thing, you should have began to take steps to be free from it. the fact that you kept enabling the same harm, thinking it will not happen to you, hey, you are responsible for what the construct enacts because you're a part of it. So if it backfires on you, hey, why are you complaining? And that's another thing with worldly people. It's only when it happens to them that's a serious thing. When it happens to someone else, oh well, they may have deserved it, or they were asking for it, or they should just complied, or whatever. Nah, nobody comes to that bullshit with me. Absolutely not. It's Mir. What do you mean with that question? Please elaborate for me. Like Chuba is saying here, Chuba is on code here. Once you get on board, though, you open yourself up to being sacrificed at any time for the ease of society. That's true. Now look, there's a difference between imitation and mirroring. Okay? Let me explain this. Mirroring is when you on purpose reflect someone's expectations back to them just to get something from them. That's mirroring. Imitating is when you look at someone and you want to be similar to them. So they like rock music, you develop an interest in rock music too. Or they are against cuss words, you are against cuss words too. Imitation is how human beings relate to one another and how we form communities and bonds. So imitation or mimesis is natural, okay? Mirroring is a tragedy. Mimesis or imitating is natural. So human beings tend to imitate one another, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that. However, when we imitate each other, but the thing we're imitating is self-destructive, now you have a problem. And that's the thing in society. People imitate one another, but they don't realize that the one they're imitating, namely the state of society, is evil. So they're not even aware they're imitating evil. So they keep seeing themselves as good people, even though they are enacting violence and harm. Till the moment that they are in the dark, they're innocent because they couldn't help it. They were raised that way. But the moment they realize, okay, something's up, and they show no interest in figuring out what's going on, they don't even show interest in alternatives. From that point on, they are enablers, plain and simple. And from that moment on, the Holy Spirit removes the restraints, and you can easily be victimized. So the thing is, to mimic someone is natural. So mimicry isn't by definition flattery. However, mirroring is different than imitation. Understand that. People should imitate one another. How else do you expect your children to learn their native language? How else do you expect people to learn basic social skills? We need to imitate one another. Because we're similar as human beings anyway. However, when people mirror you, that's different. Okay, then let's look what Chuba said here. Chuba said it is sometimes good for God to allow these bad things to happen to us. It is a surefire way to wake up to the BS that's actually going on and to motivate us to renew ourselves. That's true. So, being imitated is natural and a healthy thing, but being mirrored is a trap. When someone imitates you, fine, they're imitating you. As long as they imitate the right side of you, or if their imitation is natural. If they're mirroring you, it is because they want something from you. People imitating you is fine. Them mirroring you, you need to watch out. Oh, it's me, I get what you're saying. It's me. What you are talking about here is something different. What you talk about here is when a societal structure oppresses a certain population, the population tends to develop the obsession to be like their oppressors. And that's how, for example, you had European colonizers oppressing a lot of populations throughout the colonial era, and a big portion of those populations ended up being obsessed with being like Europeans. So they began to look down on their own attributes, and they began to glorify the attributes of Europeans. Okay, and they teach their children to be like this. In this case, you may have a community that's imitating this glorification of Europeans out of ignorance, but nevertheless, it's still something that is effective. So that is that when you talk about it happens in real life, but it also happens in Asia. It also happens with with a lot of Filipinos want to be like Chinese because the Chinese used to dominate the economy. It may sound weird, but worldlings, not all of them, absolutely not, worldlings tend to be obsessed with their oppressors. That's why so many worldlings are obsessed with Satan. Haven't you noticed this? A lot of people in the world are so obsessed with Satan. Either they deny he exists, or if the technology exists, they're all on it. And their churches so obsessed with the paranormal. They even say that Satan has a kingdom. They even claim that demons have rights over us. They even claim that we owe respect and honor to demons. Why are folks so obsessed with Satan? Because when someone oppresses you over a long period of time, out of a survival mode, you develop an obsession to fight them. And this obsession to fight them will slowly turn you into one of them. Yes, in a survival mode, you tend to develop an obsession to take down the one that's oppressing you. But little do you know, this obsession is turning you into the same thing you're fighting against. So that's why we are told, don't repay evil with evil. That's why we're told to turn the other cheek. And turning the other cheek simply means escape a bad situation without having to use violence as much as possible. That's what turning the other cheek simply means. We are told to be focused on Christ. And while focused on Christ, we deal with the evil around us. We will have to deal with evil around us eventually, but we do it from a Christ-centered point of view. And as already said before, obsession is always negative. A lot of people are obsessed with Satan and they end up serving Satan and they're not even aware of it. A lot of people serve Satan unaware. How come they're serving Satan unaware? Because their obsession with Satan turns them into violent creeps, just like Satan is a violent creep. Or have you noticed that there are police officers who want to fight the bad guys, and they end up doing the same things as the bad guys, just to catch the bad guys, and eventually don't even notice the difference anymore between the bad guys and the police officers? You even see this in movies. Sometimes you can't even distinguish who's the bad guy and who's the good guy anymore. We should deal with the bad that's going on. You should face the bad that's going on, but you should face it in a constructive way. And that's what a lot of people don't do. And there's another thing I'm teaching you over here. When you notice that someone may have a demonic spirit working through them? Because I feel, because look, when you feel like a demonic spirit is using someone, it is because that someone has an issue that's unresolved. People with unresolved issues can be used by evil spirits. As simple as that. So when someone has unresolved issues, demons can use them to drain you, or they can use them to distract you. Yes, people can be used by evil spirits and they're not even aware of it. But it doesn't change the fact they're being used by evil spirits. But look at this. The fact that evil spirits can succeed in using them shows them there is something with them that's unresolved. And likely something that has been unresolved for a long time. So when you notice that an evil spirit may be using someone, stop fighting the individual if it's an individual intending to cause you harm. It's the demon using them intending to cause you harm, but nevertheless, the human being is a participant in it. And all it's because the human being doesn't want to face their own expectations. So when you know that someone's being used by evil spirits, just keep them at arm's length and limit interaction with them as much as possible. Don't get angry and oppose them. Unless they are in agreement with the demons, of course, then you should oppose them, but avoid being drained by their own refusal to deal with reality. So that's what I want to end this live stream with. It's almost an hour. When you notice an evil spirit is using someone, because the individual is asking weird questions, or the question individual asks are not really are a bit risky, or they are a bit too off point, when you notice this about someone, realize what you're dealing with. If it's a female, then it's likely daddy issues or some type of psychological or emotional clogging is going on. If it's a man, there's likely some bitter frustration or whatever. Whatever it is, know who you're dealing with and avoid the individual. You know why? Because let's say it's a woman that demons are using, okay? And you go off at the woman and put her in her place. The woman's going to feel hurt and upset, and then people are going to be upset with you for hurting her feelings. It can be that the woman was acting out of line, absolutely. But it's the demon that tricked her to act out of line. Now she's still responsible for not facing her own reaction and her own issues, absolutely. But the thing is, it's a trap. If you put the woman in her place, especially as a man, the community will turn on you because the community doesn't want to deal with wounded women. So, when you realize that people are not interested in solutions, they keep making excuses, that already is an open door for demons to use them. So, just limit contact with them and avoid them as much as possible. Thanks for the super chat donation, Clint. It's very much appreciated. So, are there any questions in relation to this topic? And again, I mean it. Especially when evil spirits are working through a female, avoid that female. I'm not just saying this to the guys, I'm saying this to the ladies also. If you see an evil spirit using a woman, stay away from that woman as much as possible. First of all, demons hate women anyway. They wish the worst harm on women. So why would demons even use a woman? It shows you that demons are willing to endure the pain just to get something done. As long as Christ is not returned, we will face retaliation. However, we have the power, the resurrection power of Christ to overcome and to live in peace and prosperity despite all the violence around us. So individually with you as a believer, You will only obtain victory once you walk by faith and overcome things around you. So stop fleeing, stop looking for escapes, and learn to overcome stuff in Christ Jesus' mighty name. All right, let's see so if there's any other question here. All right. If there are no questions, I'll shut down the live stream. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Please put this all in practice. Agree with Christ. Be at peace, and I'll see you next time.